Hiroshima, about 140,000 people killed, majority civilians. Nagasaki, about 70,000 people killed, majority civilians. You all know the story, but let's talk about it. Let's talk about the big question. Was all of this necessary? Did these people have to die? Or was it a senseless war crime that could have been avoided? I opened the video with heavy images from before and after the bombing, but from now on we'll just watch nature. I don't want anyone to walk away from this video feeling depressed, but I will keep the casualty number on screen because we need to be aware of why we should care and that these were people just like you and me. So let's examine two justifications for the destruction of these cities. Starting first with the most popular one and the one I believed for, well, most of my life. It goes something like this. Nuking cities is awful and many civilians died, but it was necessary to bring an end to the war. If not, the United States and the Allies would need to invade the Japanese mainland, which would have caused far more death on both sides. Estimates go into the millions of deaths. And if this was true, then I wouldn't really be celebrating the nukes, but I would have understood that it was a necessary decision. But here's the thing, all of this is not true at all. And when you think about it, it makes very little sense. I don't know why it took me 20 years to realize that. After doing way too much research into this topic, I realized that there were so many other factors. And the invasion was not even seriously considered at that time, at the summer of 1945. Because the American leadership knew that Japan was close to surrender as it is, regardless of the bombs. But that's not going to be a topic of the video. Let's ignore that. Let's assume that the nuclear weapons were the main thing that brought an end to the war. If not, Japan would be ready to fight indefinitely. Would that make the destruction of Hiroshima and Nagasaki necessary? Not at all. The entire justification falls apart when you just ask one simple question. Why did they have to drop them on cities? If nukes brought an end to the war, it was not their destruction of Hiroshima or Nagasaki. That could have been done by regular bombers. It was the fact that they existed, the fact that the Americans had a weapon so devastating that the Japanese could not match it. So here are three easy alternatives. The US could have gathered representatives from every country on the planet, including Japan, and demonstrated their new weapon in the desert where nobody would be hurt. Or let's say for some reason it needed to be used near Japan to be believed. And here's the second option. It could have been used at a remote location, like a forest or some farmland near Tokyo. There would still be casualties, but they would be minimal, not like this. Or here's the third option. You see, these bombs were not detonated on the ground, but a few hundred meters above the cities in order to maximize casualties, sadly. Well, do that exact same thing, but do it above the ocean. These explosions are really, really big, so they would be able to see that you have this amazing new sci-fi weapon. These three alternatives have the same impact on Japan. And yet, thousands and thousands of people would be able to live out their lives. So no, it was not justified nor necessary. And you know what's the strangest part, and it's probably the reason I'm making this video? I learned about the invasion justification in history class about 15 years ago, maybe a bit more. And for 15 years, I believed it, like most people, and I never asked the most simple question of why didn't they blow up the bomb in a field? This could be a good lesson in being critical about information we take for granted. There is a second justification. When researching this, both in the comments of YouTube videos or on different forums, I would run into this same line of thinking. Japan was a horrible, evil state that committed worse acts than Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Therefore, the nuclear bombing is not wrong. It was deserved and justified. And I agree with the first half. Imperial Japan was evil, and I don't use that description lightly or often. But I strongly disagree with the second part. Other than maybe an officer or a few soldiers here and there, almost all of the people killed had nothing to do with Japan's crimes. They were regular people. Many of them were kids. Thousands of them were kids. Killing them as some sort of justification is simply evil. One's country's war crimes do not justify another's. And thinking that they're worth less, deserve to suffer or even die because they share a race or nationality with someone that you hate. That's exactly the logic that Imperial Japan used, and Nazi Germany. Rejecting that way of thinking, criticizing it, is probably the best way we as humans can distance ourselves from that ideology. And honestly, from wherever you are, your country has probably done awful things in the past. I don't know, maybe that doesn't work for Andorra or Liechtenstein or something small like that. But for 99% of the planet, it does. And that doesn't mean you or your family should suffer for it. That's not justice. So if you take away two things from this video, one takeaway that individuals are not responsible for what other members of their group do. If you want to bomb evil generals and politicians, I won't stop you. You've got my support. The second thing is, when thinking about the nuclear bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, we should be aware that it was neither necessary nor justified. Innocent people died and they didn't have to. Normally right now I would ask you to like and maybe subscribe in order to support a small channel, but I want to tell you about another video. I did a lot of research into this, and there is one video that stands far above everything else. It's from a YouTuber called Sean, and he goes in depth about all the different aspects of making this decision. It's honestly amazing. It's very long, 2 hours and 20 minutes, but if you're interested, I highly recommend it. Plus, he has this British dry sense of humor, so it's really fun to watch. So at least give it a go. Try to watch the first 10 minutes and see if you like it. And if you would like to see my videos in the future, there's a nice red button there. It says subscribe. Since it's hard to see someone again in the YouTube algorithm, in case you never see one of my videos, remember, it's not cool to think people should suffer based on their race or nationality. And have a great day.